Well, joining me now for more on this issue is Jessie Jane Duff. She's a retired gunnery sergeant of the U.S. Marine Corps. She's also an advisory board member of Women for Trump and a senior fellow at the London Center for Policy Research. Jessie Jane, it's like here we go again with Iran, another provocative act, this time putting a dent in the world's oil supply.
Yes, I've always said that all bad things in the Middle East are tied right back to Iran. You know, they will sit there and deny everything they've done until we show them the videotape. And essentially, who else would it be? They have every reason to want to cause havoc in the Middle East. They want attention. They want the sanctions lifted. They want to develop a nuclear weapon. The Houthi rebels are funded by the Iranians, along with Hezbollah and Hamas. We know this. We know this factually. And every time they have an opportunity to strike havoc in the world, it's going to put pressure upon their European allies to come to their rescue, because Europe is more dependent upon that Saudi oil than the U.S. Let's not forget the United States now is the #1 oil producer in the world. It has been since 2018,
right.
More than Russia and more than Saudi Arabia.
So to that end, Jessie Jane, why is President Trump being so cautious about striking back? I mean, even with almost every indicator suggesting Iran is responsible for the Saudi attack. I mean, why not go ahead and retaliate right away?
Well, we don't know that he is not planning that. What we do know is that he stated today in front of the press corps that they are making sure that this is exactly what it has appeared to be by the Saudis, an attack by Iran. But you can't go off of speculation, number one. Number two, we're dealing with a very hostile regime. This isn't something where Americans have a stomach for having more boots on the ground. We have been in Afghanistan now 18 years. We have forces that are already still in Iraq, and we are trying to pull our forces out of Syria. So we are really in a position of, do we need to react to every time Iran sneezes or blows on us? And what we have to require is that Saudi makes a very committed decision, and the U.S. will probably stand by their decision, because this was in fact their oil fields. This was in fact their oil production that has been impacted by it.
Jessie Jane, we know former National Security Advisor John Bolton was in favor of a more hard-lined approach against Iran. He's been fired, though, by the president. Did the president make the right move here? That's what many are asking.
Well, I was a big fan of John Bolton, so the right move is what the president decides what works for him. I was never inside the rooms when they were speaking. I don't know what maybe was good or bad, but the president acknowledges that he brings people to the table that will give him opposing opinion. He's open to opposing opinion, but he's also stated very clearly, it's easy to work for me because I'll be the one making the decision. He owns every decision that is made. He doesn't shove anybody under the bus, and he doesn't retaliate. And essentially, he and John Bolton had come to an impasse. That's fine. It is to the discretion of the president who works for him and who's going to give him advice. And I do trust that the president understands how serious this is with Iran. Everyone on the planet has to know one thing. If Iran gets nuclear capability, that means terrorists achieve nuclear capability. Just last week, we had our anniversary to 9/11 here in the United States, and we saw the World Trade Center come down, Shanksville, where the plane went down, and the Pentagon. Over 3,000 Americans and foreigners who were on our soil at that time were killed instantly, or very close to being instantly killed. What we have to remember is, if those terrorists have a nuclear bomb, they don't need planes. They can attack us in a way that we would never, ever be able to fathom right now. So Iran having nuclear capability is a serious threat to the entire world, and this is something that the president knows has to be stopped.
And that's why you think that he's being more cautious and more thoughtful in taking his response?
Well, you know, when you're talking about drone attacks of oil fields, it's not necessarily an act of war. It's something that you have to look at strategically. How can you impact the country? Maybe strike some of their oil fields, maybe strike some of their military facilities. These are always options where you have a minimal death toll, and yet you're making a very strong statement. But you're dealing with a very erratic regime. You're dealing with a regime that has gained a lot of sympathy internationally. In fact,
Sure.
The last administration was very sympathetic to Iran. So he has to be very strategic, very smart, and trust the advisors that he decides to bond with and go with.
All right. Retired Gunnery Sergeant Jessie Jane Duff, thanks for being with me.